Let's look at exercise 4 together. We're going to join 3 sets of data and finally arrive at some customer account information. We start with account information and we're going to join that to our customer information. Now, based on the open date, we'll find out the interest rate that was in effect between 2 given dates of start and end date. So let's take a look at a completed exercise, and we'll have about 13 steps here to go through. So let's follow along and see how we solve the exercise. I can start by giving this a little graphic title and then move on into reading our data. This data all comes out of one Excel workbook, and so we use a data read to basically access the data in that workbook. And now we're going to add in the individual reads for the worksheets within the workbook that we're interested in. We start again with that account information. And within the account information, we can take a look at the data and see that there are many columns, most of which are here on the left that we're interested in. Move that off to the side or to the top, and now let's come into filtering some of that data. So we'll pick a filter component, and what we're looking for are product names that are equal to savings account. So we set that to equals, and the 2 is going to be set here as a text field, and it's going to be a savings account. And we see that now we only have savings accounts, and now we can go and select columns that we're interested in. We're only interested in a few columns, so let's go and select those columns and add another plus to get to the next column. And we've got the account ID and the open date being selected. Now we're ready to take a look at the data, and let's add another component here to go and do a read. So this time we're going to read the customer data, and pardon me, we're going to then join that data together. Now when we do the join, there'll be an inner join where the account ID is going to match the account ID. Of course, we've got different names for the fields, so we have to actually identify each of those together. And now we have an extra column in there of that middle account ID that we can remove. So let's go and do that right away and remove the account ID column. So now we're going to prepare ourselves to go and do another join, and we're going to read in that ECB rates information. And when we take a look at this, we're going to see that the end dates and the start dates overlap. It's from until. We need to go and subtract one day from each of the end dates. So we're going to use the set function, and we're going to, within that, have a simple expression where we're going to take the end date and we're going to add a -1 day to that, and we'll put that it's a day period of 1, and we're going to call this end date. So now we're letting it know that it's going to update that original date, and we can take a look, and now we no longer have those overlaps. And now we can go and join the data from the customer account information to that data. And doing the join, we're going to have an inner join, but it's going to not be an equals. This time what we're going to do is make it between. And so what we'll say is the open date is between the start date and the end date. And when we take a look at that, we're now joining that data appropriately and finding what rate was in effect on that open date. So once we've done that, I think the rest is pretty much downhill. We don't need some of those fields like start and end date, so what we'll do is go back to doing another remove columns and get rid of those dates. Take a look at what we've got. It's looking good. Keep this tidy. And now we're going to rename that interest rate for the exercise. We need to change that to a base rate. If there were more updates you needed to do, you could add in more from to pairs for these renamings. And finally, we're going to filter the data so that we're only looking at active codes, code values. So where this is true, we can just filter on active passive, and by making no other statement about it, it's finding where active passive is true. We've now completed the exercise. We've joined multiple times. We've done a couple of selecting or removing columns and rename now. That's the answer.